of a day and how the week will be as well. Tomorrow being a big day with the Agriculture Committee or the Palipto, not really the Agriculture Committee, but the Selection Committee to interrogate or probe the fertilizer scandal. And this is what we know as far as the impeachment of Mithika Linturi is concerned. We're also following the devastation of floods in the country, just giving you the latest update as well. We shall prime you what is on our news bulletin this morning, much later in the course of the program. But for now, let's see what is the weather outlook for today. All right, extra, read all about it And this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Standard today. In the eye of a storm is what is a splash today. Deluge of death. President William Ruto has announced compensation for Kenyans affected by the floods. Although the money will assuage the pain inflicted on families, the losses are too high to bear. And this story is well fleshed out for you on page 2, 3, and 4 of the Standard today. And you can see a resident trying to save their belongings after River Perkara, that is Perkera. Perkera there broke its banks in Marigat, Baringo County. And that story, you can follow it inside the Standard today. Proper planning must include the provision of food, blankets, money, and mattresses to the residents. The 40,000 displaced families will be given 10,000 shillings each per household. Indeed, forced eviction of this nature are prohibited in all circumstances for grossly violating fundamental rights and freedoms. And that is what Kenya Human Rights Commission is saying here. We have Banandungu, who is a parent, who says, no parent will ever want to bury his children. No parent can imagine such a double tragedy. I am at pains to explain to my daughters what transpired. And this just tells of the blowback from the floods. And you can follow the story, as I've mentioned, on page 2, 3, and 4 of the Standard today. Also on the side, but White House Team 1 City audited. The Senate County Public Accounts Committee has directed the Office of the Auditor General to table reports of expenditure of 43 billion shillings by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services while it managed Nairobi County. I have a story on page 11 of the Standard today. After doctors, nurses too issue strike notice, that is on page 8 of the Standard. E-learning ghosts return to haunt education bosses. That is on page 7 of the Standard. Botswana writes history as Kenyans flop at world relays. You have a story on page 39 of the Standard today. Also, remember to get all the wiser as far as the Olympic hub is concerned. That is a Polar magazine in the sports pages of the Standard today. So get all primed up on what is up there collectively as far as the Olympics hub is concerned. You can follow this story inside the Standard. This is how it looks today. Let's see what the Daily Nation is holding for us. I think I got mixed up there, but I'll scroll over there. Raila's dilemma in race for top AU job. Raila's dilemma in race for top AU job is a splash. Hard choices. Azimio leader Raila Odinga is in a difficult position in as far as his quest for the post of African Union Commission chairperson is concerned, whether to tone down his attacks on President William Ruto, who is backing his bid, or go hard on Kenya Kwanza's failures and risk his chances. Ms. Odinga is in unfamiliar territory. That story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Ruto sets aside 1 billion shillings to rebuild schools. President William Ruto saying the money will facilitate the reconstruction of schools to enable all children to resume learning without delay once schools officially reopen. The president also promised cash assistance for displaced households in Nairobi. You have a story on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation, and you can be seen here hard at work. President William Ruto and Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki, among other leaders, touring Kiamaiko slums in Mathare, Nairobi County yesterday. The president said the government will stand with the victims of floods across the country, even as they promised food supplies, bedding, and alternative settlement for about 40,000 households displaced in the city. Dr. Ruto also said the government will spend 1 billion shillings to rehabilitate schools so that children can resume their studies in good time. This is a story that you want to follow inside. This is the story that you want to follow inside the Daily Nation this morning. All right, we have also on the side how Cusco chiefs siphoned 580 million shillings annually for years. Top executives of the Kenya Union of Savings and Credit Cooperative Society siphoned for 587.6 million shillings annually over a decade in a series of transactions, including transferring money to their own accounts and tapping unsupported loans, plunging members into multi-billion shillings loss. This story continues on page 2 of the Daily Nation this morning. On the flagger, not really on the flagger, but the flagger reads diplomacy. Somalia and Djibouti have also stepped up campaigns for their candidates. This is for the splash, but I wanted to mention the teaser on top here. Court gives state and doctors 48 hours to reach a deal on strike. This story on page 10 of the Daily Nation. ESCC to hold on to 62 million shillings cash seized in Yatani graft prop. That story continues on page 8 of the Daily Nation. Also the promise of GM maize. This is on Healthy Nation today. Treasury seeks to cut fertilizer subsidy budget. And Agora, Kenya eyes more exports to US. And that story continues on page 23 of the Daily Nation this morning. New hurdle for Raila on AU seat is what is on the front page of the People Daily today. As the new leader faces challenge after section of African Muslim bloc backs Somali candidate for African Union Commission chair. You have the story on page 7 of the People Daily today. And you can see that story continuing on inside the Star this morning. On page 7. I'll give you the details of this much later. But this is what is on the front page of the Star. Raila steps up AUC top job campaigns. Charm Offensive is teamed to reach out to more than 20 ambassadors this month. International players including Obasanjo involved in wooing their regions in Raila's favor. That is the story that you want to follow inside the Star this morning. Also, early warning, late response to flooding, the norm for years. This is what auditor has revealed there. Hopeless, a flooded section in Madara slums, Nairobi, after heavy rains pounded several parts of Kenya, causing devastating flash floods that have left 169 people dead. That is a story that you want to follow inside the Star this morning. Also, why Sakaja is under siege ahead of 2027 polls. Teacher who can't read G, that is Rigi G, for his future mistakes, also is featured here. Mwalimu wa Gachagua and Man of Steel, Auma, teacher, thespian with passion for activism. You can find all about his story inside the Star today. New tougher rules to fight dirty money is what is on the People Daily. I misled you with the headlines there. I'll just show you also what is Big Copy's headline, but it reads new tougher rules to fight dirty money. Legislation, government tightens news on suspected financiers of terrorism and cash laundering with introduction of regulations on page 6 of the Star this morning. I'll show you much later once I have it uploaded here. But what I showed you also was just yesterday's publication. My apologies. Let's see what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. Ndoto ya Ruto yapigwa breki. That is the splash here. And you can follow the story on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Rais amekuwa na mpango wa kuunda chama kimoja cha kitaifa kabla ya uchaguzi mkuu wa mwaka wa 2027. You can follow the story on page 2. Pingamizi, vyama tanzu katika muungano tawala wa Kenya Kwanza vyataka chama kipya kabisa kuundwa badala ya kumezwa na kile cha UDA. That is the story you want to follow inside the publication today. A very telling picture in a pensive mode here. The president's crestfallen face there, just depicting what is the dilemma or the hurdle right now with the Kenya Kwanza. Also, Chelsea ya Spurs ikizama ligi ya EPL. Miliki wa kampuni za mbolea feki ashtakiwa. That is on page 16 of Taifa Leo. Guinness World Record wasaka Mkenya mwenye kucha ndefu. This is the man that is being looked for by the Guinness World Records. The publication of his story was in 2013. If you know about him, it's a good time for him maybe to also seek out his chance of winning the Guinness World Record. But now maybe his long nails are even longer since 2013 up to now if he did not despair and cut them off. That story is on page 5 of Taifa Leo today. Let's buckle down to some business where how top executives siphoned 6 billion shillings from SACCO's umbrella body is what is headlining the front page of the Business Daily today. Minister sacks Cusco's entire board. Irregular transactions done over 10 years. The story continues on page 2 of the Business Daily today. And you can see cooperatives and MSMEs. Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui, who's at the center speaking at a media briefing yesterday, flanked by Commissioner for Cooperatives David Obonyo and Cusco Acting Managing Director Arnold Munene. Top executives of Kenya Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives siphoned 587.6 million shillings annually over a decade in a series of transactions, including transferring money to their own accounts and tapping unsupported loans, plunging members into multi-billion shillings loss. A government-backed special audit on Cusco has revealed the executives exploited weak internal management structures to manipulate books of accounts and carry out the irregular transactions that cumulatively cost the society more than 6.56 billion shillings between February 2013 and April 2024. Also, relief for workers as firm signal end to pay raise fees. Payrolls in Kenya's private sector showed sign of growing in April after months of stagnation, signaling increased hiring and positive outlook on future demand for goods and services amid rising concerns over disruptive floods. The findings of Stanbic Bank Kenya's Purchasing Managers Index survey showed expenditure on workers' wages and benefits rose at the fastest pace in 8 months. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Business Daily. Kenya's first Sharia bank, that is Sharia bond, raises 3 billion shillings. Kenya's inaugural Sharia compliant bond, Lindsay Sukuk, has raised the targeted 3 billion shillings after bids came in at 3.02 billion shillings. Ministry Energy Company Rao over 300 megawatts wind plant. The Ministry of Energy is locked in a battle with an energy firm over a proposed 300 megawatt wind plant set for construction in Marsabit County. Uncertainty hurts BAT. Nicotine pouches. BAT Kenya is unable to meet the growing demand for its newly launched nicotine pouches product as a lack of regulatory approval delays the operation of its 2.5 billion shillings plant. NSA posts 44% dollar returns in 4 months. The Nairobi Securities Exchange posted returns of 44.43% in US dollars terms in the 4 months to April 2024, according to data from MSCI Index. That story also on page 14 of the Business Daily. This is how it looks. You can grab a copy if it floats your boat. In Uganda, there is a daily monitor, and this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the publication today. Census dodgers face 6 months in prison. There's a warning shot here. Uganda Bureau of Statistics, in a carrot and stick approach, says it refers that Ugandans voluntarily offer to be counted, but that it won't hesitate to enforce compliance using the law for those who resist or sabotage the National Housing and Population Census exercise starting this Friday. That story continues on page 4 and 5 of the publication today. Karuma chaos. Trucks, buses vanished from Karuma after closure. And you can see it's now up there. Light vehicles queue at checkpoint there in Karuma town. Before being cleared to access the bridge yesterday, the diversion of heavy-duty vehicles away from the defective Karuma Bridge has significantly cut down the traffic volume of the Kampala-Gulu Highway. You can follow the story on page 6 of the Daily Monitor. Ministry has nothing to probe about. Our prom, says school. Ministry has nothing to probe about. Our prom, says school. You can follow this story inside the publication today. And I cried only for second time in life over Kataiwaho. This is what the father is saying here on page 2 of the publication today. And Rainbow, Zainab Jr. holds general campaigns and elections. You can follow the story inside the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. And RDB boasts touts benefits of Africa CEO Forum. Thousands expected to attend highly anticipated gathering for policymakers and business leaders in Kigali. The story continues on page 3. And government spending up to 5,690 billion Rwandan francs. You can see Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Uziel Ndagijamana, presenting the proposed budget for the financial year 2024-2025 to a joint Parliament and Senate sitting on Monday. And he stated that the government plans to spend an estimated 5,690 billion shillings in the fiscal year, representing 11.2% increase compared to the 5,116 billion Rwandan francs approved for the current financial year. The story continues inside the publication today. Also, May 7th, 1994, killers rampage through homes in Nyanza, and new hospital aims to enhance healthcare access, medical tourism. That is on page 4 of the publication this morning. Just wanted to show you also what we have on the front page of the Economist. This is the Europe publication. Europe in mortal danger. There's an interview there with Emmanuel Macron. You can follow the story inside the publication. The new sense of disinformation and concerns physical profligacy. Also conflicts on campus. Feeling horny? Dragons meet erotic fiction. All that on page 4 or inside the publication today. This is the latest publication of The Economist and the international edition. Truth and Lies. The new sense of disinformation is a splash here. You can follow all that inside the publication as well. Uncle Sam's physical profligacy. Emmanuel Macron on Europe in peril. Don't prop up the yen. And also still, it will feature Feeling Horny, Dragons Meet, erotic fiction, all that inside The Economist today. Well, I'll show you other publications much later in the course of the program. They shall be running by the split screen as we continue with the program. For now, let me just introduce our panelists. Right, one of them has just shown up right now. I'm wondering where are the rest, but we'll hear from them as well. I can see a text here from one of the panelists as well. Could be missing out, but it's been a long time since we saw Danson Mungatana. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us. Last week we missed you as well. You had to fly down to Tana River.
Yes.
The devastation we saw there, the capsizing of
the boat.
Yeah, the boats, the retrieval of the bodies. I don't know if we've retrieved all the bodies so far. And just, you know, the blowback of floods. Everyone is feeling the pinch. There's a stipend that is coming from the government. Good to see you. How is, you can just give us the situation on the ground.
Yes. Good morning, Dibal.
Good morning to you.
And those watching us. The situation is tough for us. Even for us who are used to dealing with waters. Situation is tough. We went down to Tana River and Garissa when we lost the people on the capsized boat. And we went there in the company of the PS, Arid Lands, Kelo Arsama. We went there with the women rep from Tana River and the local member of parliament for Bura and Garissa town. And the situation is not good. We want to thank the Red Cross and the county government led by the deputy county government, county governor, for the efforts they made in recovery of the bodies, the local divers. So we got the bodies, all that could be saved, but there are many other people who are saved. So we didn't lose all the 43 as we had feared. We saved at least 26 people came out safe. Then others could not be accounted for, but the bodies were recovered. So we thank God for those that we were able to save. We say sorry for the people that we lost. Most of them were passing through Tana River because they were going through Garissa to Mandera and Wajir. That's the road. That's the main trunk road from Nairobi. So we lost quite a number of people. We thank the government because they released emergency food supply. What has happened is that many people have moved from their areas like Mororo to the to the road because the road is a bit higher. And they have no food. The shelter is makeshift. Children and women are really taking the brunt of it. And then there's also insecurity because people have stopped doing the normal economic activities. So they've resorted to unorthodox activities. And we continue to say, because when we were talking to the people, they said the response is not good enough. And Red Cross was on the ground, but we didn't have any other bodies that were giving any aid. So that was the situation. Later on, in the course of the week, we also went to now Masinga Dam, the Seven Forks, Masinga Dam, Kindaruma, all those 5 dams. And the biggest one there is Masinga. Masinga is also overflown. I mean, it has an overspill. And the engineers there were telling us they are looking at 800,000 liters per second that is being released. 800,000 liters per second. And you see when it comes from Masinga, it goes to the other smaller dams all the way to Kindaruma. And then it hits the river, Tana. And when it starts from up there, it goes all the way down to now the lower lying counties, like Tana River County. And the water was coming and it has now started reaching. As of yesterday, a number of our places were already down. Many villages like Onkolde, Galili, and some of the lower lying areas on the southern side, like Wema, were already flooded. The roads were impassable. I was on the upper side of Tana River in Galole constituency, and all those villages now to access, we have to use boats. So to go to the various villages to know the real situation, and also to arrange for supplies of food to come, we had to do boats in all those places. Now visiting, you go by boat. The roads, you have to leave your vehicles very far off. Then you go with the boats. So our situation is not good. We believe, and I have asked the national government, because this is not really a county government thing. If you really look at it, the county government cannot raise the kind of monies that are required for a permanent solution. The permanent solution to our flooding areas, perennial flooding, is to construct what was promised. During the Uhuru Kenyatta time, and now we inherited those same programs in the new administration of President Ruto, there was a plan to create the Grand High Falls Grand Dam, you know, and that I know that discussions went on. I know that the papers were signed, the agreements were signed, but somehow for one reason or another, that is a project that is being done between Kenya and the British government. Nothing has taken off, okay? So we have decided as a leadership from Tana River County and also from Garissa County to make a follow-up on this, what is happening. Because we all celebrated when the agreements were signed, knowing that in the event that Masinga Dam and all the Seven Forks Dam overspill, there will be a very huge dam that will stop the water. And that water now can be released slowly. Because down in Tana River and Garissa, our problem is not the rain. Our problem is that we get water from the Ukambani Mountains and the central Kenya, Mount Kenya area. When it rains, it all spills over to our place. And some of the higher areas in Ukambani, which neighbors us on Kitui side. So the water, you could be at home sleeping, and then in the morning you find you're floating, you see, or your chickens are all gone, your goats are all gone, and it's hot, you know. So it's not our water, it's water that is coming, it's storm water. So what is needed is to block that water so that we can make use of it. And it is very important that I think the government should focus on that direction. That's the only way we are going to have a permanent solution. And if the cost of doing the High Falls Grand Dam is a problem, then they can do minor dams. Still, that will help us, because the problem with that area, our area, is that immediately the rains are over, we come into a very dry season, and then there's no water. So 1 month ago, you had water all over, and you hated that water. Now, this month, you have no water, and everyone is crying, you know. So what is needed is to block that water so that we can make that land productive. Because remember, we are in a floodplain. Tana River County is in a floodplain, most of it, okay? So if you do any type of agriculture, it really pays off, because the land doesn't need a lot of fertilizer, doesn't need, it is actually, it is nature's gold mine, you know. If you put water there, the fruits, the crop that comes out is great. In fact, when we were doing the sugarcane trials, we were able to harvest 2 crops in 1 year, you know, 2 seasons. And like maybe in Western Kenya where they only do 1, in our area we can actually do 2 in a year. So we have extremely productive land. But what is required is heavy investment from the national government, because the kind of budgets that we are looking at for that heavy structural engineering is beyond what the counties can do. Whether we talk about Tana River, you talk about Garissa, or you talk about Lamu, because that is where the water just goes down. So we hope this discussion will be carried forward. I can see what the president is doing up at this side in Nairobi. We've seen what they have done. I think it's a good step on the right direction.
Thank you.
But still, we need action on the side of Tana River.
All right. So I wanted to know also, maybe in light of this and what you're talking about, the waters that are surging towards your area, they're not your waters, as you mentioned, coming from the highlands. What is also the action or the concurrence in terms of approach and remedial action that will come from your area, Tana River, and the National Harvesting and Water Harvesting and Storage Authority, right? Have you in any way approached them to try and see how they can harvest this water and how it might be stored as well? Think about that as I just listened to also what Dan Mazo is up to. Is just fresh from the coast as well. All right, what is happening at the coast?
Yes, we had public participation, you know, with the farmers who grow nuts. And we went to Kwale County. Today the Committee of Agriculture of Senate will go to Kilifi. You know, the cashew nuts. That's a great area for growing cashew nuts, but unfortunately very little has been done, and the crop is no longer bearing. And we will try. There's a new law being proposed, you know, on how you can deal with the nuts in the country. The Agriculture Act and you know, AFA Act provides that only the minister can appoint the person who will trade in the nuts, and it ends up, you know, in a collusion, and maybe just one individual dealing with the nuts or able to export them, and that controls the prices. So I listened to the farmers, and I realized the cash crop farmers have gone through a very difficult moment, and in fact they have been discouraged. There's been a lot of disorganization, and just across the border in Tanzania, you know, they are doing very well because the government has put structures, and they have a system which works very well with the cooperatives, and they are able to, you know, to raise a lot of money and to keep their farmers happy, you know, by selling the product all over the world. Just across the side of Kenya, the trees are not even bearing fruit. So this week, that's what the Committee of Agriculture of Senate is doing to make sure that the coastal farmer and any other farmer dealing with nuts makes a benefit out of it.
Well, okay, you in the Agriculture Committee?
I'm in the Agriculture Committee and also the Committee of Delegated Legislation, where I sit with my senior Mogatana. Yes.
Right, and also the CEO of the Parliament. Both of you actually in the Christian Union.
Yes, both of us are in the Christian
choir. Yeah, so the National Prayer Breakfast is coming up?
Yes, it's coming up this month, the
this
last
month
Thursday.
Yeah? The last Thursday
of this month, I think 30th. We are preparing for it. It's a lot of work for Honorable Mugatana and I, because
you have the list of the songs. Can you maybe just mention some of the hymns that you prepared for us, so that we know some of the songs that you will be actually...
This year, in fact, we are going to do some Kigosho.
So, Kigosho?
Yes, so it will be very Africanized. We mix it with the standard hymns that we normally sing. But our chairman will tell you that we've been working on it, and we are going to have a very good worship day on that particular day. Slated 30th May.
30th, yes.
30th of May. Yeah.
And we're going to have a lot of visitors, from all over the world, and Kenyans, and there's about 3,000 people doing the National Prayer Breakfast at Safari Park. Starting very early in the morning, and then it's where the judiciary, the parliament, and the executive come together to pray for the nation and dedicate the nation to God. So I hope we are going to get blessings out of that and God's favor.
Of course we should.
Right? So that we can do away with this
devastation that is here. We need the prayers so very much.
Yeah, and then we are also adding something new, because this time it's not just going to be the Christian religion alone. We want to incorporate some element of other religions, because we are praying, all of us, for the nation. So it's not just the Christians praying. We want to see if we can incorporate that angle, so that other leaders...
I thought it's always been interdenominational.
It is, yeah. And,
or interreligious.
No, it has been interdenominational,
so
but not interreligious.
Okay.
We want to add that angle. So we hope this year we'll be able to pull it off, so that we have prayers for the country from different types of faith that are in the nation.
But you think also, given the time that you have there, you might be accommodative of every other?
It's difficult. It's difficult.
But
we want to sort...
You have the indigenous as well, that you have to bring all the...
Yeah, we do that, and we have something
How are you going on this election? Yeah? So that we have so people don't feel like, okay, you say it is interreligious, we were not represented.
Yes, we're also going to do something we have never done before. The day before the National Prayer Breakfast is the national conversation. So we are going to have a women convocation, that the women leaders will have their own fellowship.
As a build-up to the day, or?
Yes, as a build-up to the day, to the main day, so that it happens in the United States of America, in Uganda. So we want the women leaders to come and pray for the nation together, the mothers of the country, to pray for the nation. Something we have never done before, but we are planning to do it this year.
So help me understand as well, how does your committee, or you being the chair, now you're talking about women right now. We have also Mama Rachel Ruto, that she's been really fast out of the gate to make sure she's running with this torch of bringing sobriety through prayers and through fellowship as well. There is a faith diplomacy office within the office of the First Lady. How does faith diplomacy come into play in all this? How do you involve them there? Or what is their sole function? I can see her office has also been given a budget, right? That is also 17.6 billion shillings from the previous budget. So how do we account for this particular monies, especially with Mama doing good projects and also the faith diplomacy? Or you've not even consulted the faith diplomacy office?
Well, we haven't consulted the office, but we have seen some of the representatives, and that's their own thing they run. You see, the National Prayer Breakfast is done by Parliament. is led by Parliament. So we just invite them for that particular event. And you know, a nation which believes in God, you see, goes a long way. Or a nation which has declared God and dedicated themselves to God, as it reaps its own blessings and is able to go through its challenges, you know, with the help of God. So we encourage, you know, people first to serve God, then serve man. And we believe it's one way you can inculcate good morals into government, and it's a way you can use to do away with corruption and bad practices in government. But so we encourage an initiative which keeps the nation closer to God, and I believe in this women convocation, the First Lady will play a very big role in that. In Uganda, it's usually led by the First Lady. In America, it's you find the spouses of the people in leadership, you know, join together to pray for the nation. And a nation which believes in God will go a long way. And it's a way of bringing out also the young ones. And I believe that's one way of eventually eliminating corruption by good values, good culture. You bring up children knowing some of these things are not good for the nation, and God is not happy with them. Otherwise, when a nation doesn't go that way, it becomes chaotic, it becomes tough, difficulty. You go through difficult things like we have gone through now, mostly for failure for lack of knowledge or know-how on how to handle some of these things. So that's a day we just dedicate to make sure that as a leadership, we have handed over the nation to God, and we have, you know, surrendered ourselves to the Supreme God to be our God and to lead our nation. I believe it's a good thing for now and for the future. But about the budget on religious activities in the State House, really, I don't know. What we usually do for the National Prayer Breakfast, we fundraise, and the Parliamentary Service Commission allocates some budget, and there are people who come and make donations. There are companies like Cooperative Bank, CIC, who join us, and quite a number of them, you know, make sure that event succeeds. And Wonder Joy always gives a tent, like his sacrifice to God, which a tent is about 6 million shillings. So it's
that mega tent, huh?
Yeah, that mega tent, you know, it is his donation. It's like his sacrifice. It is sadaka, you know, for him. And you can see how God blesses him throughout the year for being part of a thing like that. It's one way of, even in the families. And even the Muslims come and fellowship with us. We have a lot of common things with the Muslims. And even your station is one of the main broadcasters of that day. I believe it's also your sacrifices. You are part of tithing and giving back to the people and to God. So it's a day you serve the Lord with us for the betterment of the nation. So it's a good practice. It happens all over the world, and that sort of diplomacy exists. We will invite quite a number of the presidents. Sometimes we have presidents. The chief guest is a former prime minister of Ethiopia. Presidents attend. They also borrow one or two things from us and they practice in their country. Ministers attend from other countries as speakers. So, and then they also eventually invite us to their own event of that nature. And it's been a good thing. It's been there for 21 years. In America, it's been there since 1946. So it's something which is happening in the world, and it happens.
All right. Maybe I can finish it off by saying this.
Yes.
Tana River County has been a beneficiary of the Mama Doing Good projects. Because I remember we made a request for assistance in the last floods hit, when the last floods hit about 5-6 months ago. And they really came out, so we are grateful for what they're doing. And as for faith diplomacy, what I would say is that I sit in the Pan-African Parliament. We have 55 countries in the African Union who are members there. And I I make this point that if out of the 55 countries, nations that are part of the African Union and are part of the Pan-African Parliament, if let's say 3 or 4 or 5 only have days they dedicate for prayer, and God is sitting out there, there are over 55, but there are only 5 that, or 3 or 2 or 4 that are seeking his favor. I think as a father, he would grant something to those who are on their knees as a nation, seeking his favor. And that is one of the things that always distinguishes one country from another. And even at an individual level, I keep telling my children, we are over 7 billion in this world. You know, you're so minute in the scheme of things. But if you are one of those that every day you wake up and go and knock at God's palace, the 7 billion out of this, there are 7 billion competing for that same attention. But if you are one of those that every morning you are there knocking, asking God, you know, I know we are 7, but and you have all these animals to look after, whatever, but I'm just asking, as you're blessing the others, please remember me. You know, I tell you, God is a fair God. He is a fair God, and he will definitely do something about it. So even at an individual level, at a nation level, I think prayers are very good. And we may not know, we may not have tangible results for even that faith diplomacy, but it is something that is good. And I believe that God will favor us in one way or the other.
You're reminding me of Bruce the Almighty, the movie.
Yes.
When you talk about God seeking our attention, or we seeking his attention, that is looking all over. But we know that is maybe a finite thinking about him, that he is looking at one person at a time, but he is omnipresent. So he's got his own dynamics of how he can hear our prayers that we cannot really understand. But I wanted just to know, even as we had the Bunge Towers, how compliant is it when it comes maybe to aiding you on your spiritual aspect? Because we have members of parliament, yes, and they are involved heavily in this task that sometimes it can be a heavy toll on you. You don't seek any psychological help. You don't have counselors. I don't know, maybe within the Parliamentary Service Commission will tell us. Some of you, we know you are in stress, but you don't seek counseling. But when it comes to compliance, in terms of having prayer rooms, was that something that was taken cognizant of? Or is it just dedicated to a Muslim brother? Is there a co-sharing of maybe these rooms for prayers with the Bunge Towers? Or that is none of the thing that
it's important in in Parliament. There is a chapel and there is a mosque. But now when Bunge Towers was done, previously how the committee which plans these and meets for fellowship every Wednesday morning meets at the building before. There's a place which has been set aside for that, and we've got an office for this. It's only that we have not asked for space at the Bunge Towers. Actually, somebody floated that idea, but we still have an office which I think is sufficient, and we have a place we can hold prayers on Wednesday mornings. But at the same time, the Catholics are the ones who use the chapel, so that has been taken care of. Although it has not been now officially been done at the Bunge, Towers, but in their reopening, when the towers were being opened, so prayers were offered. And therefore, that facility has also been dedicated to God. Facilities have to have that, even their homes with the chapels and places for worship, and I think it's a good thing. It's a sign that to invite God into your presence. So we have a mosque, and we have a chapel.
All right.
Which is used by the Catholics every Wednesday morning.
Okay, you got any resident sheikh for the mosque there, or as a resident pastor, or
he's our resident
pastor, or a chaplain?
As a chair,
No, we don't have that, but you know the speakers, the two speakers are the
But in light of you being also the chair of Shakahola committee as well, you've recommended that we have people who are qualified.
Yeah, in a sense, I don't think it has ever gone that way. So our chair will serve as our pastor. So.
And the speakers are the co-patrons.
The co-patrons of, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But
it's something
you
could consider.
mentioned something very important here about stress and the work we do. Now, we don't have councillors in Parliament, and I think like most other corporate organizations, this is a new thing really coming. In the US and in Europe, it's a normal thing to say, I'm going to see my
therapist.
Yeah, they call them what?
My shrink.
Shrink.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very normal thing in the US. But here in Kenya, somehow we haven't gone to that level. But it is growing. I think marriage counseling is becoming part and parcel of our society. A lot of people who are considering settling down are encouraged to go to their pastor for actual counseling, or professional marriage counselors. You pay and you go into it. So that whole culture hasn't quite evolved, and it is not in the corporate, it's not in Parliament, it's not. But I think we are getting there. And I haven't heard, but I know that in the cover, if you are sick, any sickness, you can seek, insurance. The insurance will pay for you if you are sick, any type of sickness. And I think that is how it is. But there's no real setting aside. And it is true, people work under a lot of stress, but we don't have those kind of facilities in our place. But it's a good point you have raised, and I think the corporate bosses who are listening and people in government, I think it's time we start thinking about it, not just for members of Parliament and Senate, but when you think about the police, you think about the army fellows, we actually need those services, because they deal with very high stress kind of situations. And some people think it is just the army or the police who are dealing with crime.
We're talking about teachers. I think we have 66 of them they've died by suicide.
Teachers.
So you imagine, these are our teachers who are handling our kids in school, and they're running, or they're having the stresses. 66 is a huge number that we should really consider about the mental health crisis that is affecting this country as it is right now. So it runs across, right? Even from media houses, even to the teachers, police, some
content creators.
Vicariously, you actually, for the police especially, it is huge, because the manner of things they handle in a day, and collecting bodies, you just there in the trenches at the end of the day, and it seems sometimes we are not really giving that particular huge constituent of maybe just taking care of their mental health, as it were. Right, but let's see. There's a good relief, of course, when the government also is responding with the crisis here, where we had President William Ruto announcing an allocation of 1 billion shillings towards the reconstruction of schools destroyed by nationwide floods. The president has also reassured flood victims in Mathare of the government support in their restoration for the next 3 months. Speaking during an impromptu visit to the affected residents, the president reiterated his commitment to ensuring that each affected family has enough food and water. The death toll from the floods has risen to 229, while thousands more left homeless. Where has more?
President William Ruto on Monday arrived in Mathare, Nairobi County, to assess the flooding situation and check on the victims displaced by heavy rains. The president toured the Kiamaiko area, where he addressed locals, assuring them that the government will facilitate logistical support, temporary shelter, and essential supplies and food supplies to those affected.
Kila boma serikali tutawapatia shilingi 10,000 ya kutafuta makao mahali mtakaa mkingojea mpango ya serikali.
Last week, President Ruto ordered an indefinite extension of the reopening of schools, originally scheduled for April 6, 2024. So far, 1,967 schools have been affected. Ruto said the government will ensure all schools are renovated to facilitate the smooth resumption of education once schools reopen.
Mimi nataka niwatangazie hapa Nairobi, serikali tumetoa shilingi bilioni 1 ya kujenga mashule yenu upya. Tuhakikishe ya kwamba kila mtoto wa Nairobi na kila mtoto wa sehemu zingine za Kenya wanarudi shuleni pale tutakapofungua shule.
He affirmed that the government will cater and support people who have lost their homes and properties due to the floods and help them stand back on their feet. Ruto's statement comes even as the latest numbers from the Interior Ministry shows that at least 228 people have so far lost their lives in the devastating floods that have swept across the country. The Ministry of Interior, in a statement on Sunday, 5th of May 2024, indicated that the raging floods have also left 164 injured and 72 missing, with nearly 213,000 people affected. Mathare was one of the areas massively affected by the flooding waters in Nairobi. Several properties and lives were lost in Mathare as flood waters swept through the homes.
Tutakuwa na mpango. Mwananchi kama anaondoka hapa, tunajua anaenda kukula nini, tunajua anaenda wapi, na tutapanga vile ataishi, kwa sababu hatutaki tena kizirani ya zamani.
A 24-hour evacuation notice was issued on 2nd of May 2024 to settlements in 33 counties that are within the 192 of these high-risk dams and water reservoirs. In response, the government has set up 138 camps across 18 counties, currently hosting over 62,000 people. The weather forecast predicts moderate to high rainfall and thunderstorms in 37 counties, including regions in the coast, western Lake Victoria Basin, central eastern Rift Valley, and Nairobi. The president was in the company of the Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki, Principal Secretary Raymond Omolo, and his housing counterpart Charles Hinga, among other state officials. Vera Mora, KTN News, Nairobi.
All right, and the response there coming in handy from the government right now. Many of Kenyans also will be gagging for that aid as well. But for now, it's 7 o'clock on the north. We're going to take a short break. When we circle back, of course, we shall be looking at that and the raft of other issues as well. And I can see some of the guests that we're expecting here sending apologies here in these uncertain times. Many meetings are called for just to make sure that everything is running smoothly as far as just being with the constituents and attending to their needs as well is concerned. I can see Omboko Milembe as well. He's not showing up. Yusuf Hassan as well. By the way, also his house was flooded. So also members of parliament were talking about stress as well, experiencing that as well. We take a short break. We're watching Siasa Fiesta here on Morning Prep. Don't go away.